Okay, off go. Alex, how's it going on your end?
It is going. Rebounding off of having a sick kid this week, hoping I don't get sick, and using this time to be the most presentable I think I've been all week. Even though I'm wearing a hoodie, I'll take it. How's your week going, Steph?
It's good. We won the football, which anybody in Europe will probably care about. I'm not a massive football person. You can see my football. That's the only kind of England-esque UK flag I have. So go us. So the nation is happy at the moment. Until Sunday, we'll find out our fate. So let's get started. So go on, Alex.
I was going to ask, like, after Sunday, what's next? So do you...
Oh, that's it. That's the final.
Oh.
If it comes, so anyone in the UK, we just keep singing the song, It's Coming Home. I don't know what happens when it comes home, but that's something to look forward to after Sunday. But that's the final. And for Americans, I mean soccer, not American football, to clarify. And so let's go. So welcome everyone to the Keys to AWS Optimization, the show where we share stories, concepts, and solutions to help you unlock your cost optimization at AWS. I'm one of your hosts, Stephanie Gooch. I've been around Amazon for I think 10 months today, but before that, it's gone quickly. And then before that was head of FinOps at KPMG UK, where I managed the kind of cost optimization, chargeback, and lots of different reporting from there.
Well, nice to meet you on this Thursday. No, I'm kidding. So my name is Alex. For those who don't know me, I run the optimization team for all of our strategic industries at AWS. I got started in the AWS optimization world at the Weather Channel, actually repping, my Weather Underground gear today, and got to be a part of an awesome migration that they did and work in the world of storms a little bit, and learned a lot about AWS and optimization and what all the bills and all that fun stuff meant. And then found my way at AWS. I did what Steph does now, and then slowly got to the point where I got to build out this awesome team that makes me look better than I am. So there's my origin story.
Nice. And we've got our optic swag. I'm going the wrong way to rep in because Alex says we never wear the t-shirt. So just for you, I'm wearing the shirt today. So
I did draw that, so it is pretty cool.
You drew it? Also, Alex drew the background, all these things that they are, where are we? Down there. Okay, so let's get into it. Today's topic, the best name we've ever had for an episode is Tag You're It, thanks to Alex, the genius behind that. So if you didn't get that, we're talking about tagging, all things tagging. We're going to cover lots of links. So I'll keep sharing them on the screen. I'll put them in the chat, but we're going to be showing lots of resources that are available for you to utilize in terms of AWS tagging. We're going to talk a bit about how it's going to affect your cost optimization, how you can take advantage of it, and also things like kind of chargeback, showback elements, and some other great stories. So to kick us off, Alex actually did a talk at reInvent last year on a big part of it was tagging. So do you want to give us the kind of top notes from that are really useful for everyone to learn about?
Yes, I probably could do a better recap now than I could at that point. So for everyone who attended reInvent last year, it was virtual. So, and we stayed out of studios because of safety and COVID. And then I happened to get COVID and have to record my reInvent talk in the middle of having a very high fever in my garage. So if I seem off, please don't judge me too hard. But let me recap what I was supposed to do and making my points in there. So I talked about cost allocation and how it can give you that structure of where to optimize, where the costs are coming from, and trying to narrow down what that true cost of service is, right? Now, true cost of service in general, you're going to have so many different, it depends on the customer, what you're going to bring in for a data source to get, but if you can narrow down certain costs in AWS, then you can allocate it better when you're looking at that true cost of service. And so in my talk, I talk about some of the main tags that I see people use and the most common across the board, and then gave some examples of it. And I think that was one of my favorite parts of the talk is kind of going into how I've seen it be successful and what
Right.
are the most popular tags. And Steph, well, I don't know when the last time you watched my reInvent talk was. I know you watch it daily.
Obviously.
But before I say kind of what were the top tags, I thought, like, if you could pick 3 fields that people tag for cost allocation, what would you pick?
Oh, I think the top ones are always going to be things like environment is the classic. Knowing where you're deploying things, so like dev test, production, even if you have that not specifically in a tag, but a set of data, so you can, especially when it comes to cost, understanding if your production environment should be kind of more, or your dev environment would be less than what you're spending in production. There should be able to be that distribution. Any kind of identifier to who owns things is often quite important. So if you want to be doing maybe a cost center or a project name, maybe not someone's name, because people do leave companies, and so that can sometimes be a bit of a thing to watch out for. What else is there that's really useful? I have a whole list of them that's in a blog post that I will share that I've just escaped my memory. But yeah, I think they're the kind of top ones. Anything that's gonna, I guess maybe the most important thing is going to be anything that helps you do your job. So anything that's relevant. So I've just posted the link to the blog post I was talking about that's got some better options than I have. But I always found that with tagging, there was always, when we first started doing it a bit at KPMG, people were tagging things just because they thought that was the right idea, but they weren't actually using any of that data. And so it took ages for us to maintain all the tags, but no one was using it. So what I say might be relevant but to me, but it's different for you guys. But yeah, what about you? What would be the top ones?
So I think we have a pretty much the same. There's one other one I threw in there, and that was schedule. So even if you're not using a scheduler, is this a resource? Like, making people think the second that they spin something up, is this a 24/7 resource? Is this something that I should probably look at in a few months and see, like, does it need to be on 24/7? And things like that. So kind of scheduling. But other than that, I think most of what you said, right? Like, what environment does this belong in? Is there an identifier for, like, the application that you're building, or team, or budget line? I've seen people kind of put budget codes in there, but I usually say don't pick more than 5. 5 mandatory tags should be your absolute max, because it is going to become a free-for-all. And make sure that you put in exactly what tags you need, because if people say, I'm sure, Steph, you've seen it a million times, like, say application. Okay, application with a capital A, application with a lowercase a.
The worst.
Application, all caps.
Or just apps. Like, that was one of the worst things. And then if you guys are used to using cost allocation tags, they're case sensitive, I think. So, or at least if you do kind of abbreviate them, then, which is the whole other subject of cost allocation tags, but being able to read those into the CUR, they're all different. You're just not going to get any consistency across it. So that's a great point to just define what you need.
Yes, it's a pain. But so as I've commented on, I drew Steph's shirt, I drew the background. So I'm the make things pretty person. But when it comes to the mechanisms behind and the technical side of how do we make this pretty, that is Steph's expertise. So Steph, how do people enforce this? Like, what tools and mechanisms are out there to make tagging a little easier?
So I want to cover kind of 3 that I think are really good. So the first one is very simple. It's when you use infrastructure as code, which hopefully a lot of you do. So that is when you are writing down kind of code and then passing in, you can pass in information to it. So you can set parameters around what you want to tag. So a Terraform module, for example, you could define in the module that somebody has to pass in application name or environment, and they can't deploy it without passing something in. Whether they pass in something rubbish or not, that's kind of the first level. So you're not really sure. So that's a bit of a con to using them. But definitely the other one is going to be something like SCPs or tag policies. So we've actually this is where all the links come in a new lab. We have a tagging lab, and I'll see if I can find the link for that. But the tagging lab defines kind of how you can set up a tag policy so that you can set them up themselves. So those tag policies will enforce things like case sensitivity, like what Alex was pointing out. So you don't want someone using the wrong kind of spelling of stuff. I'm definitely one of those people that will start to spell things wrong or capitalize for no reason, just for fun. So kind of enforce those things. So that's an extra element to those tag policies. And we actually had someone, I'm going to post the comment in here, so just throw it up as well, which was from a customer the other day that I got just in normal work, which was tag policies basics and within an organizational unit. What are the boundaries and caveats and kind of dangers to them? And I think the thing that I said is that the good thing about them is they enforce tags. They enforce naming conventions. This is the benefit. They are tag policies, but they stop you building stuff. So that can be a bit of a problem. So if you want to get things spun up really quickly, or you've got developers that are quite finicky about what they want to develop and they want to do things fast, their production's gone down, you don't really care about tags, as you just want to get something spin up, then having some kind of policy in there could be a bit of a problem with that. So they're the kind of main ones. And one thing I want to shout out that I won't go into massive amount of detail is Tag Tamer, which is a new solution, brand new solution that's just been released, which I will show on the screen. So this is a new service which will help you centralize tagging. So I don't know, Alex, if you've had many customers that are asking for this kind of thing or have problems centralizing their tagging.
Well, give me a use case. So I've read through a little bit of Tag Tamer. I haven't used it myself. I know that it addresses questions that I got a lot from customers, but give me kind of a use case. Help me, bring it down a notch for me. Help me understand how I use it.
Yeah. So from what I understand, and then if anybody can maybe if anyone's used it in the comments can share that. But basically, what we do is deploy it. And I think it's all set up, very simple deployment, and you can control the tags that are used across the board. So you can auto tag things is a great win, especially the kind of key resources. So EC2s, RDSs and stuff like that. You can start to tag them from a central place so that everybody gets it the same tag. So you don't have to worry about individual developers doing it themselves or anything like that. So that's a good point for it.
Interesting. All right, well, I'll test it out. You sold me.
Okay. Good. So we've talked a bit about obviously the how to enforce tags, but how to use tags is a big thing about when to use them for cost allocation. I find is the biggest thing, like your talk was about. Have you got any kind of good stories about where customers have used tags to do really good cost allocation?
Oh, yeah. I mean, put me on the spot. I'm trying to narrow down.
I've thrown a question in already.
There are people that are really good at it. I would say that usually the problem is keeping up with the hygiene, like if a resource changes. And so where I've seen it be really successful is when customers use tags to report out optimization or wins or things that teams are doing, because then they want their things to be included in them, right? I once had a customer who would show like by tag what the oldest resources were, and people would want to go and modernize and change those up, and I saw like a lot of success there. But from a cost allocation standpoint, we have a couple customers right now working on bringing in that true cost of service, so mirroring it with how are they measuring their revenue and what application does that tie to. The one thing that in the current situation I'm working on that is a hiccup is that there's a shared dev environment for multiple applications. And so they're having a hard time figuring out like, how do I allocate that piece of it? And I don't know if that's something that you've had customers come across, and if you have a solution, let me know. Or if anyone in the comments has a solution, love to hear it. But it's really that balance of, not segmenting teams too much, but showing the teams why it matters. And then the hygiene gets better. And then I have had customers say that you absolutely have to tag and the resource won't spin up if you don't. I get a little nervous on that. But then again, notifications, emails, we all have a junk email box, right? So are you going to pay attention to that email that comes through when you don't do it? So it's about the balance. And I definitely think it's very dependent on the customer. I wish there was a one size fits all, but I really think that every customer has such a unique use case for things. Like I'm sure at KPMG, you saw things that at Weather Channel wouldn't have made sense for me to do.
Yeah, definitely. I have a real memory of going to one of the senior directors and being like, we should tag. Like, because I'd read it. I was new at that point thinking about the FinOps world. And I was like, oh, everybody's tagging, we should tag. And then he very bluntly said, why should we tag? And I was like, oh, because of like, I don't know, chargeback and knowing where stuff is. And he's like, but don't we have a model where every account we have belongs to a project, which belongs to a cost center? So what else information do you need? That all lives in a separate data set that we have. Why do you need tags? And I was like, well, I guess we don't need tags. Yay, I'd have to do loads of work. So that was a win for me. And that is, I think, quite a common idea. And if you can do it so you haven't got this shared model, then it becomes kind of easier. And then this blog that I mentioned has a bit of a breakdown on how you can do that and use one of the labs, classic well-architected labs mentioned that I have to seem to do every single episode now, on how you can actually take advantage of that model and make chargeback a bit easier. But we also did have some customers where they do have that kind of shared services model, which can be quite tricky. And I think we mentioned on our ECS episode, which you can check out either on Twitch or on our YouTube channel, about how you can use tasks and the tags in the tasks to do chargeback, which is sounds quite complicated, but it just allows that kind of granular view. But one of the biggest caveats, I think, is like not all Amazon services have tags, which can be quite annoying to say the least.
Yes, well, and there's different ways, and I'm sure Seth will post all the many blog posts that we've done to kind of counteract some of that and what we've seen customers do. And you know, when it comes to tagging, there's of course, like cost allocation. We're talking about optimization here. It's kind of top of mind. But Steph and I were talking within our team this morning, and it got brought up kind of how to use tagging to figure out where your waste is. And that was really cool to me. I mean, I know that customers do it, but I hadn't actually messed around at all with it. Do you want to go in, Steph, to like some of the unique cases that you've heard? I love hearing how people can get creative about it.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll talk a bit about stuff that I've done that's a little bit more basic, and then I'll post the actual blog post about it, which is far more sophisticated. So I've used tags before in terms of you go through and you can figure out a really good example is unattached EBS volumes. So if you can have a regular Lambda function that goes through and says, oh, this Lambda, I found it, it's unattached, and you put the date on it, then you can have some other Lambda function that can check regularly and say, oh, this volume has been unattached for 30 days, 9 months, 1 day, whatever is good for your business. So you can have that parameter set and then delete it when you don't need it, or snapshot and delete it if you need to be really careful, especially in kind of production. But having that automation so that you can review that data regularly, like I think Alex mentioned earlier, was just like having some kind of tag on it to say when something was made or when it's been found, to identify it. So we're not talking about chargeback. We're not talking about define things that developers have to do. It's this other process, which is kind of preventing this waste of cost and kind of managing your accounts. But the one that one of our colleagues mentioned was this really cool case where they had a more sophisticated version of my one, which is about using CloudTrail to understand how long those things have been attached. So it's more granular. So you can see the last time that EBS volume was used. So maybe it's not attached, maybe it's actually connected, and then tagging that and then removing it. So adding this extra layer of complexity that is kind of like smarter. So a bit of not necessarily AI, but in a way that's allowing the kind of Amazon to do the work for you, because all the data's there. You just need to get your hands on it. So I think that's a really good use case. And that could be scaled. Like I think I have ones for things like Elastic IP concepts to do that, or Snapchats, or one of our colleagues was talking about looking for the most recent version of an AMI. I don't know if you know about this, for example, Alex, it's from Andy's customer. And so hopefully he'll watch this and I'll probably do it wrong, but it's something along the lines of, I'm meant to help him do the solution. I haven't had time. So the solution is around the idea you have an AMI, and when you have the snapshot from it, it can work out if that snapshot's related to the newest version of the AMI, and if it's not, tag it to then delete it. Because when you create an AMI, you create a snapshot, and the snapshot costs money. So that is a really good kind of solution that maybe one day we'll put up on our GitHub.
I like that. I want to. Okay, well now I'm going to go have to ask Andy all about it. Make sure you said it right. No. I actually right now am working with Bryson on our team for a customer who just implemented auto scaling for the past quarter in one of their big applications. And we were trying to figure out how much auto scaling has saved them. And we're using tags because when you put something in an auto scaling group, it automatically gets a tag to figure out, where was the starting point? How did it grow? And watch those auto scaling groups. Haven't solved it yet, but it's actually really interesting the level of data that you can see from that and watching those spikes and how it happens. And then also correlating that to time zone. So it's
oh wow.
I'll keep you posted on that one though.
Yeah, follow up. So for those of you who may have joined us kind of halfway through, if you haven't got a guess, we're talking about tags, all things tags related, and some of the best things. And check out the chat. There is a load of really useful links in there to kind of Amazon blogs, web links to just general examples, things, customer solutions that are really good. And I think tagging in itself is one of the big areas that people always want to bring out. A lot of the customer calls I have, I don't know if you found this, Alex, especially when they're starting out, is like they need a tagging strategy. And they often kind of feel like it's this big problem that they have. But then actually we've mentioned quite a few things. It depends. What I found is what you use tagging for what you need is kind of a good solution. But we were talking also about the S3 Lifecycle Rules, what version? That one, John sent. Do you want to chat about that?
Yeah. So I've actually tested this one out. I get to have an example.
Oh, nice.
So basically tagging things using that time, right? So like how long have they been there? When have they accessed and things like that in storage, and using that to implement S3 lifecycle policy. So we have S3 intelligent tiering, which is great. You can click it right when you put something in S3 and have it tier for you. But if you feel like you have more of a very even pattern, so say pretty much nonstop, once something's been there for 3 months or 6 months, it's not going to be accessed that much. Then you can shift it in to have your own kind of lifecycle policy versus using intelligent tiering, which will monitor for you, but you have to pay that small monitoring fee for it. And so basically people will take, or customers will take, tag resources that should be looked at, or resources that could go into the next help me out, tier, or maybe flagging things that should be cleaned up, right? So using that, I used it personally as a way to kind of give me a report of what I needed to look at, but you can also put some automation behind that too. Right. And one thing that we haven't necessarily touched on, kind of segueing into that, is how do you see the tags? So like you put all this work into tagging your environment, tagging your resources, you put up, things like being able to see how old your storage is or what you need to be looking at. But how do you see that? And how do you see that if you're a finance person, or if you're an engineer or a manager? What's like the best practices there?
It's a good point. That's a great point. And also just on that S3 thing, that sounds really cool. And I need to go and check that out. Definitely. So how you see your tags, also a great point. So just looking on an instance and seeing what's connected to it, maybe isn't the best for the finance people, or it's not really useful in general, unless you're kind of checking up on when things are being reviewed or deleted, or what things are, if you're not really sure, if you just come across an instance in a random account. That I've definitely done that. So one thing is cost allocation tags. I think, and Alex can correct me if I'm wrong. So these are really useful to pull into your cost data. So you can see these in Cost Explorer, or you can see them in your cost and usage report. So we mentioned them a little bit at the start, but they are, I believe, case sensitive and definitely spelling sensitive. And you have to activate them to actually get them into your cost and use report. And I think it takes a month to come in. Well, don't quote me on that. I have to check. But the link to the documentation is in the chat. But that's a great way to kind of get those things through. And then you can start to filter, especially in your cost and use report, or exactly Cost Explorer, by those tags. I know once when I went to Alex, when I first started here, asking for some help, her to help me do a bit of a deep dive on some customer spend. And she went into Cost Explorer and found, kind of looking at the different spends in different environments. Like we mentioned, those environment tags at the start. So whether you have dev, test, and prod, and actually noticed, I think, that the dev environment was spending almost the same as the prod, and kind of highlighting that information. But Any other kind of ideas you've done?
Geeking out over tags a little bit. It is one of my favorite things to go and look at someone's tagging patterns and try and figure it out. Because a lot of times people don't even, they abbreviate things and they call it different things, and so you don't really know. But then you can kind of watch the life cycle of these resources, and really all from Cost Explorer. You don't have to go that deep into it. We have the Kudos framework, the cost intelligence dashboard, which is a well-architected lab that Seth can post in the chat. And we can put in tags to that, right? So you can decide what tags you want to see and monitor that way. But Cost Explorer is such a quick and easy way to get there.
Yeah, definitely. I will just throw up the lab. Everyone's heard of it by now, hopefully. The enterprise dashboard.
Well, while you're posting that up, so, kind of, I know we're towards the end of time, but summing up a little bit of if you tag, you guys are it now. I have to insert the line. Where do you start? Where do you go from here? Go into Cost Explorer, see what tags people are using. You have to do some clicking through, right? You can filter, you can see what's popular, what's not. Figure out what patterns you can find. Treat it like a puzzle, right? Even if you're more on the finance side, or you're new, or you're an intern, or you're just trying to figure it out, go and kind of dissect some of those patterns and see what's working for people. And then I know we posted so many links, but some of these, I think the most important one is my reInvent talk.
Obviously.
But go through these, and even just the videos, right? And see how other customers do it. For me personally, I learn when I see examples and real life stories. And so a lot of those links that we posted in the bodies of some of those blog posts and stuff like that are how customers are doing it. So, keep reinventing the way that we're using tags, and send us your use case. I'd love to hear it. We love a challenge too, of how do I make X, Y, and Z work.
Brilliant. I love how you said reinvent. In it for the reinvent.
I've been here too long. Amazon has infiltrated my vocabulary.
Brilliant. I know that's happening to me too. So one other thing, we're going to close out in a minute, but just wanted to make sure I remind everyone that next week we're doing the, again in air quotes, Ask the Experts. So please feel free to send us any questions you have that you want us to answer kind of live on the show. If you want to send them in, or come next week, come join us live and ask us in the chat. We will be kind of wanting to know things that you guys want to know that we maybe haven't covered in this series so far. I think from my end on what is the kind of key takeaway I would like to do is, when we talk about FinOps, we like to talk about, or cloud financial management, we always like to say about bringing all the different people in. So bringing in the stakeholders, the managers, the finance people, the developers, and making them have speak one language, have one conversation. And tags is a really good way of doing that, because if a developer decides that he wants loads of tags, but then doesn't kind of ask the finance people when it comes to things like chargeback, when you look into the cost and use report, those tags aren't there. But also vice versa, if the finance people are telling all the developers they have to do tags and they don't really understand why they have to put this cost center or environment, they don't really care about it. It doesn't affect if the thing's highly available or secure, then they're not going to do it. So it's really important to kind of have that cross collaboration and make sure that you define kind of what is needed. And again, going back to that concept of don't tag for the sake of tagging, tag to actually improve the data you have already, especially when it comes to cost. Oh, a little thing from one of the viewers is that they use Terraform null label. I think that's to avoid tagging. So maybe don't do that. Okay, brilliant. So that is it from us, I think, this week, unless you've got any closing statements, Alex.
Oh, there's one thing that I forgot to talk about. One of my first projects when I came to AWS, I worked on making Alexa tell me tagging tips. And I bet the skill is still out there and we can post it in the meeting notes. But you could do some pretty cool things with Alexa and letting you know, all right, what resources are here. So challenge to anyone who wants to take a look at that kind of hackathon and see what you can come up with.
Yeah, definitely. I will find that link and we'll put it in the YouTube. So check us out on YouTube, all of our videos on demand, the keys to AWS optimization. Somebody just corrected me that the null value does help with tagging. So check that out. I've never heard of it on Terraform, so I'm going to go look at that after this session. Next week is our Ask the Experts episode. So please feel free to kind of send us questions, as I said, and we will see you all next week. Have a good day.